everyone, this is the channel AgileSeeker. My name is Arman and we are hosting interesting people and talking about interesting stuff. And today my guest is Joanna Koprowicz. Am I pronouncing that correct?
Perfect. The best version I've heard so far.
Okay, sounds fantastic. So Joanna is Agile Coach, trainer and consultant, and she has an incredible journey of working in various worldwide companies. Thank you for joining us, Joanna. We're glad that you accepted our offer and you are ready to share some opinion for us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure, Arman.
Okay, let's start from the very first, I guess, the interesting parts. How you get into all of this, how you get into Agile, let's call it like this. How was your first interaction with this methodology or mindset, let's call it like this?
I think it happened for me like for many people. I came to work one day as a project manager, and then I was told from next week you are Scrum Master. And so there was absolutely no decision making on my part, but it was the best thing ever. So I was sent to a course to do a certified Scrum Master course, and during the course I've noticed that Agile had answers to many common problems that I would encounter as a project manager. And from there, I just fell in love with it. And since then, I've been upskilling constantly in the Agile space and lean thinking ways.
Yeah, interesting that you mentioned. So before that, you were a project manager, right? And I think it was mostly about the traditional waterfall approach. And
Correct.
you mentioned that there are a lot of problems and issues that Agile is helping to solve. So going a little bit in there, many people tend to treat these issues as something that waterfall is dead, something like this, that it's not working, it's nothing. What's, as a person who started in waterfall and then encountered the Agile and all the benefits, what's your opinion on that? Is the methodology, which has like a centuries, let's call it like this, behind it, is really so not common today for common products?
I think it depends what you're delivering. So I think the word changed significantly. And it's like, as you said yourself, it's been there for a century. It was developed to support some particular model which was very steady and very constant, and you could predict very much upfront, but the world changed since then. So at the moment, I think there are some projects which are very suitable for waterfall delivery. So for example, regulatory projects. So upfront what needs to be delivered. There is absolutely no negotiations there. If you do not deliver it, you will be penalized. You have to do it, period. However, I still think that incremental delivery, which Agile can facilitate, will still be beneficial, because by doing integration offer, you mitigate the risk of big bang delivery. Yeah. So even in the situations that waterfall would be suited, I still would go for incremental delivery.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, perfectly. I fully agree with you, because I have myself the background in being like fully traditional in the common essence of that word. As a person who shifted from waterfall to Agile, what was we understand about the benefits, and we will talk about benefits like a bit more, but let's talk about like the ugly stuff. I mean, what was the problems for you personally to switching, because there are two different mindsets. Yeah, usually waterfall, what I heard from people who had like significant amount of experience in project management is that waterfall is like a triangle where on the top is some person who is giving orders, so you need to take everything about the control. So it's not about the collective ownership or shared responsibility. It's about giving assignments, yeah, delegation. And Agile is promoting something completely different. So for you, a person who started from this triangle, shifting from this, what was the obstacles? What was the problems of, I guess, mind changing about this, like icebreaker, let's call it like this?
To be honest with you, like working as a project manager, I was constantly encountering the same issues and the same problems. And it was quite frequently there is this mentality which, just go with it, like that's what it is, and, work around it. I had a problem when I was working. In general, projects are very long, at least, in the past, there used to be multi-year projects that I was working on. And very frequently, when you were finishing one project, there's supposed to be lessons learned, but people were already, because this project was, finishing, so they were already put on the new project. So they were busy with kicking off the new project. And those lessons learned actually never happened, and never there was a time for improvement. And even though the methodology itself advocates for doing, closing projects with lessons learned, actually that's never happened, that's skipped. And then every time, you constantly recurring the same problems, and there is never time to pause up and do something different. So when, this concept of having constantly time to pause and think, how can we do things better, was very appealing to me. Also, I'm very people focused. So for me, calling people resources, treating people as resources, shifting people, throwing bodies at the problem. I never saw it as a long-term solution. So Agile is more, Agile appreciates psychology. Agile appreciates that soft skill area. And there's lots of concept in Agile around that. And that was really, really appealing to me, because I do believe, and personally in the past, even as a traditional project manager, I did, I shined. There was few projects that I completed really well, but it wasn't me. It was the team behind, those projects. So I always had that appreciations that if you treat people well, they do well, and then you benefit from it as a project manager. So I always knew that treating people in particular kind way, that they are happy, they are fulfilled, they feel well at the workplace, they have fun while working, that was important. So again, when I've heard about different techniques, I would just start reading and learning more and more. I learn, more appealing to me it was.
Yeah, I think this is about the question that many people mistreat, that Agile Manifesto was written in 2001, but many people has this organic agility about appreciation. This is actually about appreciation, about how you treat your own team. Yeah, and I'm not going to say that traditional project management treats them differently. It's about emphasis. So usually the traditional project management emphasize the result, the plannings, all this bureaucracy, but Agile is all about people. So I think for the people who are this organic agility, that even in traditional model, they usually put this on the first place, and they do succeed in implementing Agile. So what was next when you were get this Agile part? So you started working with your first team. How was your team? I mean, the first team, it is very important when you are starting a new methodology and you got your first project, first team, and their Agile maturity, their maturity as the team. How was that first experience? Have you had to explain what Agile is for the team, or they was mature enough? What was the first time?
No, it was, to be honest with you, it was amazing. And it was amazing purely for the reason that none of us knew what we were doing. So we have to figure it out collaboratively. I had to ask, and to be honest with you, sometimes I think I was much better then than I'm now, because I had no clue what I was doing. So I was asking a lot. I was looking, seeking guidance. So we had to be in it all together and figure it out on our own. And that was a great experience. The team bonded really well. That was probably the best team I've ever worked with. Now I kind of more knowledgeable, and sometimes I get frustrated, just do it this way, which is completely the opposite what it should be.
Absolutely.
So I think, so sometimes I think, with knowledge, I lost actually all the essence of what a good Scrum Master or facilitator or servant leader is about.
Yeah, it's actually a very good point, because I heard that a lot, that newbies, newcomers in the Agile, they are sometimes more Agile than experienced people, because they do it intuitively. They know the value, they get the value that with the people at the first, the interactions is the first, and they do it based on their instincts, how to be better. But people who had experience, who let's call it in certain degree of confidence, they know that this might work, this might not work, so let's go less riskier way. So this is organically restricts the true agility of the team, and this is, I guess, the constraint. I have personally the same thing, because when I first get the agile, it was like this, whoa, it's all about the people. And then during the time, guys, let's not trying this because this doesn't work. But because I tried it, I know it, but then I think about maybe I'm doing something wrong, because maybe it's working for this team, not working for that team. So this experimentation is very important. So mentioning about the team, the company sent you to the Scrum courses, and this is good that the company supports that. But in this path to agility, like the first team, the first project, then it's evolved further, as I see. And when you felt yourself already confident of transforming basically to Agile Coach, because this is actually about the transformation. Yeah, it's always usually like this: project management, then a Scrum Master, the Agile project, and then in some point, some people, me, you, and some other Agile coaches, they feel confident that they can learn, teach someone, like coach someone. Let's not use the term teaching. When was your like this breaking moment when you felt yourself confident of coaching team in getting agility?
So it's very interesting, because I don't think there was ever this breaking moment. And the assumption is that, yeah, I'm confident to be an Agile coach. And the truth is that Agile coaching, team coaching, pushes me very frequently outside of my comfort zone, because every team is different. Every team will have different context. Every team is made up with, through different human beings, as different people. Every team, every organization will have different background, like even commercial sensitivity, their financial situation, and so on. So this actually, Agile coaching pushes me hugely beyond my comfort zone, because to give you an example, I've been working, for example, with some startups, and a wrong decision, it might end their living. So the complete existence. So there's lots of pressure. So I cannot say I'm comfortable. And I think that's what I like about the job, that it constantly stretches me and pushes me outside of that comfort zone. And in terms of when was this time that I, became Agile coach from being Scrum Master, to be honest with you, I go back and forth. So yes, I am an Agile coach now, but if somebody asked me for a help with guiding the team, I would do that as well. I like both. They are, they different perspectives, but I still like that direct interaction with teams, one or two teams as a Scrum Master. So I still like it. But how it happened? So as I mentioned, I loved Agile concepts so much that I started learning intensively upskilling. So I started learning more, and every time I would go to conference, I would come up with the list of things that I have to research, and I start researching something and to link to different concepts. So I start, my knowledge was getting bigger and bigger. And what I've noticed that people start coming for advice to me, and I was like, okay, because I never thought I was the person to go to, and I never kind of felt that way. But then I start noticing that people who are my go-to people start coming back to me asking for advice. I was like, okay. And I think it again organically grew, that I start giving people some kind of advice, and then they start bringing me more and more on the journey with them. And then that's how I shifted into that direction. However, I have to say, I did spend hours and hours and hours and hours on upskilling. So, and it's like, at the time, at the moment, it's a little bit different, because I can afford the courses, certifications, courses, they are quite expensive. So I can afford that now. And I would be certified in many areas, but before I couldn't afford certified courses. So I was just doing YouTube, reading books, reading articles. So I did a free upskilling. I was going to meetups. So I've done a lot of, but I honestly put work and it didn't felt like work, because I love the concepts, but
You love
I
what
put,
you do,
yeah, I put loads of time into gaining that knowledge.
Very interesting part. So many people actually struggling this, and I get this information a lot that where we can learn, like maybe some libraries or maybe some information. And good thing about now, about like modern time, is that there is a lot of information and free information in there. And I think it's actually coming from inside the person about this will, about this tendency of self-education. And I think this never stopped, actually. I mean, because the good thing about Agile and Scrum is that there is no end point. Like there is no point that saying, I know everything. So guys, like, I don't need to learn. For me personally, I'm still going to some meetups. I'm going to webinars and everything, and I always get some new information because everything is evolving. And I think people should firstly get this information that it's never about inputting a lot of money. It's about inputting a lot of time and self-attitude in self-education, and you really need to want this because you will spend a lot of time on this. And this will be just the beginning of the journey. And there is a misconception that people think that finalizing one course of Agile or finalizing one course of Scrum, and that's it. We're like ready professionals, and we're like expecting a lot of stuff to be done. And I think this is the first icebreaker for the newcomers in the profession. You mentioned that you were starting in the startups, and based on your biography, I saw that you worked in the worldwide companies like MasterCard, like Allianz. Yeah, and let's talk about a little bit about the difference, because really an Agile coach, a Scrum Master, like any elements of the project management team in a product-based company, in a big, like giant company, like for example the MasterCard, and a startup who like has a lot of more flexibility, but a lot of more responsibility in like having critical wrong decision. It's very different. So by comparing these two stuff, yeah, let's call it like this, where did you get like more interest, like more passion, let's call it like this, for working, and where was like most challenge for you, the startups or like the worldwide like product-based company, where you're just a part of the mechanism?
Yeah, so I love the dynamic environment. So I like when decisions happen that in general, startups are very lean because they do have to mind the money. They do have to be conscious of their small leaks, and they have to be efficient. They cannot afford to create lots of waste. So I very much like the environment of startup. I also like the fact in startup you have to do very often more than one thing because the money is tight. So you have to you value it. You also because startup, like everybody, very often, like it depends on the scale of startups. With smaller startups, people need to be, very often people are invested, so they have this commercial sensitivity, they understand business problems. I love that one. Even with funded startups, still there is a level of this commercial awareness, and everybody understands how are we contributing, what we are delivering, what's the solution here, what the benefit, and so on. So this is, I really like that atmosphere. And that suits me really well. Corporations are different. This is like a big ship. Everything takes time. Even things which are obvious might take months to persuade somebody. Data gathering, like I would very often use data to make some point across, and to make sure, like, if I influence people, it's not just my opinion. This is what I observe, and here you are. It's the data that I can produce, but it will take time, and sometimes it's extremely frustrating because simple decisions, something which is like obvious, 6-year-old would know, in the corporation it takes 6-9 months to get to. So there are different environments, but in corporation I like this complexity. There is multiple teams very often working on one product. There is there is different dynamic. So I like this complexity part of it. Very often with corporate world, money is not an issue. So there is not so much pressure. If you do mistake, then that's it. We are dead. But on the other hand, what I really like with startups is that because money is an issue, they have to be very often. There is lots of creativity. They are thinking outside of the box. How can we mitigate that risk? What can we do? Which I really like as well. So I think every environment will have its benefits and things that could be improved.
Fully agree with this. And one thing that I always hear about working in big organizations, big companies, corporations, is that they usually have year planning, like a 5-year strategic plan, and something which I should have as a big company. And sometimes there is sayings that people say that this kind of planning, this kind of bureaucracy, which is absolutely normal, I guess, in scale of the big business that they are doing, is killing agility. So what's your opinion on that? And how to keep, in your opinion, this agile mindset, this agility, when you are like a small portion of the mechanism of this huge big ship, as you mentioned, as a corporation? Because usually what the teams are thinking is that, okay, my mistakes are maybe critical, but they are like something like a bullet in the ship, so they are not very, very harmful. And this is impact the people mindset, I guess. So how to keep this agility while working on the big ship? Because in startups, it's certainly different, where I understand already. Yeah. What do you think?
So I think agility is a different level. So if you are at the team level, if you are a team player, you can only do so much. So you can ensure that you apply some agile ways of working, agile practices. So you make your job as easy as possible. You create this fun environment that you really like working. You mitigate stress by delivering in sustainable pace. So there is no this pressure at the end. Risk of integrations and things like that is mitigated. So by following some agile practices, the teams can achieve that. So, that's what the teams can do. But then at some stage, the team becomes mature and hits the wall and cannot do much more beyond that until the organization as a whole matures. And I find this is quite difficult, because sometimes you will have one successful team and they organically grow, and you have few successful mature teams, but still as an organization the whole organization it's not that mature. And I think the problem is very often agile initiatives are driven from the IT, which I think it should be reversed. It should be business and HR led, because until those two are on board, there is a very little impact of what we are doing, and agility is not exactly embraced. And also education is very important. So I think bottom up approach, I don't think I've seen it working, because I think bottom up, you get to some level and then there's constraint and you cannot get through that wall. Top down, I don't believe in that approach either. I think it's to both ways. So we need to be educating not only teams, but also leadership. And very often the whole concept is, yes, we need agile coaches to teach them, change them. And that's this missing piece is, we need agile coaches to help us to change. And I think there is the leadership very often still do not understand what agility is about. So we have teams which operate, which are very often are quite agile mature, but then instruction, direction, the ways of working are very traditional, because that's how leadership operates. And that's, I think, the hardest part to overcome. And that's why I use a lot of data. So I try to gather the data to persuade, because leaders would be very analytical. There's, they
should be, I guess.
You can get much further if you can produce some data to back up your statements, because they stop being just opinions and there is some evidence to your story. So I think this is much easier, but this is the hardest part. So so I don't have a one answer. I'm really sorry, but
No, that's fine. I was not actually expecting a one answer because there is a never-ending story of relationship of the agile specialists, agile coaches, and the management. Because actually there is a single shift between thinking about being analytical and being actually a mindset, because a lot of stuff in agile I think is not analytical, because we're like it's more empathy, it's more empirical, and big corporation, big bosses and like managers, they think about money, and this is quite practical, and this is like rules of the game, let's call it like this. So there isn't always it's like a negotiation. I usually say that an agile coach is sometimes correlated as a diplomat. You know, it's a diplomacy. How much you can trade off, improving your words, and how much you can get for them. It's always about this trade-off, and this is something I guess like very organic, how it happens. So one thing I noticed that you organize the community in there, which is Agile Lean community in Ireland.
Yes.
So what's this community about? Tell us a little bit about the story about creating this, because I see that you are so organized, not just a member. So how this idea come to your mind, and what interesting initiatives do you have there?
Yeah. So to be honest with you, I didn't, I co-created, but I'm not a founder of it. So
Okay.
how it all started, it was in the times that I didn't have money to be doing all that training. So I was very creative in finding the ways how I can learn. And I found out a meetup group which was running, and I went a few times, and that was free way of learning, because all the meetups were sponsors, they were free, and they were great speakers, and I could network. So I could not only learn and see how, you know, other people were doing that, but then I start enriching my network of go-to people. If I had that problem, you know, I would reach to this person and I could brainstorm if I wanted to do something. So that's how I got involved. But then after a while, that group was looking for volunteers, and I responded to call for volunteers. And from there, I kind of get more and more involved, and we grew the meetup to now community. So we organize not only free meetups. So basically, the whole idea was community for community. So we were organizing ways of sharing the knowledge and upskilling, cross-skilling, and so on. So we were organizing a free meetups, but we start doing it very, very regularly. And people start asking us about conferences. So we decided to experiment and do the first conference. So our first conference was a half-a-day conference where we managed to find a great sponsor. So we didn't have to pay for the venue. And we had, you know, few just 150 people and a few great speakers, and that's how it grew. And during first conference, we took we created the kind of survey, and we found out there's appetite for, because that conference was on Saturday, so we find out there's appetite for full, you know, midweek big conference, big venue, and so on. So we organized our second conference, and we created wait lists. And based on that wait list, we discovered the following year we could grow much, higher. To higher numbers. And it was very interesting because actually, because back to the startup idea, because our funding was very, very limited, we actually practice agile event management, because we didn't have a big, you know, budget upfront, so we couldn't say, okay, that's what we'll do. We have to grow. So we managed to get some sponsors, some money. We put money for a deposit for the venue. We got another sponsor. We put money for the food. We got another sponsor. We booked something else. So it was very gradual, and we were building as we're going. And what we learned, we learned to scale. So we were, booking a small venue with the option to upskill. So if we have 200 people, we'll have this room. If we have 500 people, we'll have those 2 rooms. If we have more, we'll have 3 rooms. So it was always option for adding to our offering. So it was, you know, I think at the moment I've seen there's more and more organizations organizing events in Agile way. But that's, I think we pioneered it. And again, that was due to the concept. We had no money. So that's how we grew. So So yeah, that's my journey, as an event
Actually,
organizer.
very interesting point, because like solving problems and looking for opportunities, I think this is the core idea of being agile, like being agile, really not doing agile, yeah, as the common idea, as the current modern idea is saying. Because actually what is agile about is about, with the current resources, like not human, like the resources, find a solution. I once heard a story a couple of months ago that there was a company that during this lockdown, like first day lockdown, they lost like significant amount of their revenue, something like 95%, and they had only 24 hours to make a decision. And we talk about huge corporation, and so there is no time for these 9 months like marketing plans, sales, risk management, and everything. They have a problem, and now they need to find the solution. So this is kind of challenges, this is kind of limitations push people to find some ways, and they survived actually the lockdown.
Yeah.
So this is, I think this is the core idea. And this is like, I think the journey that you shared about the community is the organic way of scale agile, how you can scale it. So I think what you can do in a couple of years, maybe you can conduct a webinar about like journey of the community in Ireland. So it will be a very good series, and I will definitely attend if you do.
Thank you. Thank you. But you know what? I agree with you 100%, because this is, especially in COVID, it's noticeable that Agile to me is about risk mitigation and embracing opportunities. And you can see two business on the same street. One is thriving, even though COVID, the other business is dying, even though they are in the same space. So their circumstances are very similar, but their attitude and possibly their background. Because if that's I encounter one very interesting case study here in Ireland, that the company is similarly to the example you gave, they would cease operations if they didn't do anything. So they had to act, because for them that was the only way out. So they actually grew 70% year by year during the COVID. But others company, they might have bigger financial resources, so they might thought, okay, we'll wait, but they lost the opportunity. So this is very interesting, but because it's very contextual as well. But Agile meant to help you to mitigate the risk, financial risk, and embrace the opportunities. So if you if you are in the space that you need to do that, the Agile is absolutely the best way of going forward.
Yeah, the issue is about, I think, with the big corporations, so as well, that they have like this big amount of budgeting, is that I think they're always a little bit slow in the decision because they can't afford that. I think, but the companies who can't afford that, they're a little bit more reactive, in their solutions, and pretty honestly saying this is the only way they can survive in this changing world. Even going outside the COVID, the world is changing very fast, and there are a lot of companies that they were like giants in like 5 years or 7 years ago, and currently they are not, because in one moment of time they didn't make the fast solution. They said, let's wait, like, because we are giants, no one can treat us, and something like that. And I think the Agile itself is going to be evolving. And one question based on this one, how do you see in this post-COVID area, a lot of stuff is going online. A lot of companies went fully 100% remote working, and many companies are thinking about hybrid approach. So in these terms, the work of Agile Coach, Scrum Master, Project Manager, a person who is working with people. And this this work is very emotional, actually, because there is chemistry between the team and everything. In terms of working remote, a certain portion of this chemistry is lost, especially for the new teams. So how do you see the future of the work in terms of this remote working? What new challenges I think the Agile will face to overcome this and survive as a methodology of solving problems?
Yeah. To be honest with you, I don't know if it's like COVID related, because I have to be honest. Yes, in Agile, you know,
COVID just accelerated this.
Yeah.
I think just an addition. It's accelerated the organic way of going to the work wherever you want for.
I think, you know what, COVID forced organization to face the reality, because my personal experiences in whole my career, I work in one collocated team. Okay. One time in my life, I was on collocated team. Any other time, I was in global teams. So remote working was always the way to go forward, but it wasn't acknowledged. And to be honest with you, before COVID, long time before COVID, what I discovered was that if you do not have everybody collocated, it has to be remote. Because when you have hybrid model, then some people are sitting in the office and they're having conversations. Those people, nobody cares about quality, what they can hear, what they can see. It's really poor. And they are completely isolated and they have no clue what's being said, what's being discussed. Sometimes you have situations, there is a meeting, there is no conclusions, and then you find out decision was made and you're like, when? And there's like, oh, after a meeting, we stay a few minutes and we made a decision. You know, so I think when you, and that's actually a rule. If you have one person remote, then the whole team goes remote. And I think COVID actually helped organizations to notice it. And I'm actually very curious what will be the outcome of it, because more and more organizations are talking about hybrid approach. But again, we are not exactly using agile ways of thinking here. Very often this is traditional hat. So you will be in the office on Tuesday, you will be in the office on Wednesday, and like, okay, why don't you let the team to self-organize and maybe let, and I encounter a situation that, you know, it's even not the teams that like, there's random people forced to go to the office. So I'm like, let the team to organize and they can choose one day they want to go together to the office. They want to like, what's like, and I think this is very interesting because yes, we proven we can be effective and efficient working remotely, but still the moment there's opportunity, the organizations and managers put their, you know, traditional hats and start dictating rather than letting the teams to self-organize and do it in the most efficient way for them. But that's very interesting. I think also, you know, COVID, now you will start seeing split, because remote work requires different tools, it requires different techniques. People have to upskill. So for example, if myself to do online delivery, to deliver training online, I had to do some courses. I passed exam. So I know it's a good practice. Then you will have people who try to deliver trainings in traditional way and keeping people for 4 or 5 hours in front of the screen, you know, just listening talk and slides. So I think now you start seeing the world being differentiated, and you know, your professionalism will be also, you know, that your ability to work in remote environment will be taken into consideration as well as a whole package. And another thing, Arman, which I find it very interesting, is that I actually, during the COVID, I've done some courses and I've worked with some teams, and I'm very close with those people. We catch up, we have virtual coffees, we have lunches, we like spending time together. So I think chemistry, you know, you can have this online chemistry and you can bond with people if you create right environment. So if you spend time on building the team, if you have tools to work efficiently. So I think the fact the team is completely 100% remote is not an impediment for the team to bonding and doing well as a team. And you know what? Like I've heard about the example which I thought was really good. That there was people working remotely, and one team member, one girl, was invited to somebody's wedding, and they never met in person before. So.
That's a good option, because I had a colleague that can make a wedding online. I mean, it was during the hard lockdown, and like They were the two just like she with her husband, and like the translation, everyone was online. Actually, a good experience. I mean, it's something new. Yeah, a little bit. The swamp is shaking. I see. Actually, one thing about going remote, working remote, and this struggling is that I think this is actually an evolution as well. I mean, in terms of how the service of agile coaching will be done, because it's also opening a lot of opportunities, because there are a lot of companies, there are a lot of corporations, teams that were like wanting to have an agile coach or wanting to have this service of being trained. But for example, they prefer the currently already old-fashioned, like face-to-face everything, but it's difficult. It's always difficult. For example, if me from Armenia want to invite someone from Ireland, there is a lot of stuff I need to organize, like it's transportation, everything, organizing. In terms of online, it's like perfectly like an agile manifesto, like a human interaction. If we have an agreement, that's fine. We need a big screen and people who want to get this knowledge. So it's also an opportunity for them. And currently, when I'm looking in this all websites offering jobs, 90% of them are already requiring remote. So if someone wanted to work for Google or Apple, and he's like very, very far from there, he don't need to think actually from visa for everything stuff. He can just work from, and this is like a step, I guess, for the world without borders, something like this. So at least something optimistic to understand on this post-COVID area.
Yeah, definitely. And, like applying agile thinking, because personally, I am very fond of remote working. That's what I see myself doing in the future. However, I also recognize that agile, if we apply agile, if we were agile as an organization, we need to meet people's needs, and not everybody wants to work remotely. So there will be need for that hybrid approach, that some people will be in the office, some people will be working remote, because I do believe it's important to fulfill people's needs. But then the self-organization comes to play, that we can be efficient.
Yeah, I think in the next couple of years, we'll get the answer how many companies really adapted for being agile. Looking backwards on the profession you were years ago, we just started with the agile. What kind of advice you will give to yourself about making your way more easier? So with the accumulated knowledge and experience you have now, just looking back, what kind of obstacles you think you may have skipped if you have something you know now? That's a tough question. Yeah, I guess it's a psychological tough question.
Yeah, it is very tough question, because you know what? I honestly do think that I embraced what I had, because I had very limited amount of money to invest in myself at the time. So I have to be creative. So of course, if I had money, I would do much more courses, I would go to paid training much more quicker, but that wasn't available to me at the time. So, so for me, books, articles, meetups, YouTube, that was the only available material and resources. Of course, you do need to do some certification. So, like if you want to be a Scrum Master, probably you won't find a job until you are certified. The same for product owner. But don't think that 2-day course will equip you with enough knowledge. So I think, and I honestly, I think for the first 3 years, I did any screen time I had would be YouTube, watching at different conferences, materials, presentations, and so on. So I think I really, really dedicated lots of time to learning different concepts around agile ways of working. So to be honest with you, one of the things that I am definitely missing, and I'm still missing it, and this is what you mentioned, that Agile Coach needs to be a politician, needs to be very diplomatic, which I'm definitely not. Okay. So if I could give myself advice, I would work on my diplomacy, but it's also part of who I am. It's part of my personality. So I'm not sure if it's that easily, it's easier said than done.
it's always too easy to look back and say, I will be better if I never did this. But I think the dots that Steve Jobs once said, you just can't connect dots forward. You need to connect them only backward, and it's the perfect way for me actually as well. So I need when I'm looking back and saying, okay, this case or this case I can change, and then I realized that it's like a work breakdown structure. It's like if you remove one part, you need to handle also all these paths that went from there.
And sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, and this is actually difficult because you have to, in that case, you're going to the more unprediction. So you cannot say what happened.
Yeah, but also you are removing emotions. Now it's easy to look at this, oh, I should have done this or that, because there's no emotions. When you add those emotions, it's much harder.
Yeah. It's actually always, everything connected with the past, it's always about emotions.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Actually, one last question, like I call it the king question, which I always ask, is that there are a lot of people, not only in Armenia, worldwide, who want to step in the world of Agile, project management, Scrum, and they want to be part of it, part of community, and they heard a lot of it because really in the country, this the system, like that's called this ecosystem, is full of this modern words like Agile, self-organization, teams, commit, and everything. So with all this, let's call it media noise, what will be your advice for the newbies to start from? Because actually, if you just go to Google and ask it like, what is Agile, you got bombarded with everything, a lot of, and there's really a struggle to find the starting point like this, get this and start to go further. So what's your advice for new people, and how, I guess, not to get lost for them and get a disappointment about choosing this path?
Well, so I'm a great believer in mentorship. So I probably find yourself a mentor or coach, because that will help, a lot. Agile is not one thing. So you also need to know yourself. You need to know what's appealing to you. Are you more in data analytics? Are you about the process improvement? Do you like seeing things getting done differently, experiment? That's maybe Scrum Master path. Are you about creativity, innovation? Do you like to see a product being built? That's, product owner. Then do you like working with people and guide them? That's maybe you can think, because you can always you need to think about the long-term vision. So yes, at the moment, that's my starting point, but where I want to find myself in the longer future. So maybe then Agile coaching. Agile coaching can come from both, because Agile coaching has lots of dimensions as well. So it can be, for Scrum Masters, product owners, can be technical, can be, for the enterprise, can be for, like there is so many layers to even Agile coaching. So you need to understand what's appealing to you, what area of product development is appealing to you, and then start thinking what I need to do to get there. So for example, watching the mapping up the career path, and then looking at the job ads and thinking what criteria is required. And sometimes, very often you will see that Scrum Master needs 2 years of experience. So
pretty often.
Yeah. So this is the difficult one to overcome, but maybe trying to look for the organization who is willing to give you a job with the vision that they will help you to become a Scrum Master, and having those negotiations upfront during the interview process, that's what your end goal is, and that's where you would like to find yourself at, and you are hoping for assistance and support. And this is absolutely natural thing to do at the interview process. I think sometimes people are shy that they won't get a job, and they kind of do not talk about it, and they try to talk about it later. I think it's too late, because you want to be clear. You want to go to organization which will support your development. So I think talking about it during interview is absolutely, it's a time to do it. It's very common for people at the interview mention that they would like, they're looking for an organization who will support them with their learning and college and so on. And so why not to talk? That's where I see my career growing.
It's real communication,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
They're giving their expectations, what they
Yeah.
expect from you, so you can give what you're expecting from them.
Yeah, exactly. And sorry, I already mentioned mentoring, but volunteering is another thing. So when you all my career is based on volunteering. Every time I wanted to enter a new area for myself, I started with volunteering, because you gain experience, you learn. It's also a fair deal, because I'm very upfront. I'm learning. Will you, I would like to help you. I have that theoretical knowledge, but I didn't have an opportunity to apply it practically yet. Would you be willing to be my partner? So I teach you what I know, and we experiment together. You don't have to pay for it, because there is some risk around it. So I think volunteering is the way that I definitely leverage all my career on. And even now, like what I mentioned with meetups, I volunteer now I am qualified now as a life coach. So I still take free clients, because I want to build my skills before I will be charging for that service. So till now, I do lots of volunteering. I didn't have that much money to go to conferences, so I volunteer at conferences and trade my time for opportunity to attend them. So all my career is built on volunteering, and I hugely recommend it, because you not only get access to knowledge, but you also get access to network, people who can mentor you, who can guide you, who can help you out.
Yeah, perfect advice. I think really, and I think many people will follow it and find the courage to go through this all this stuff, which is really hard. I do know how to shift and start from something new. It's really hard, and it's courage.
And I've done it a few times. I vertically changed careers on a number of occasions, and volunteering always worked for me.
Yeah, really. Okay. Thank you very much for your for accepting our offer and joining us today, Joanna. It was really a pleasure for me personally as well, because I get a lot of knowledge. I usually say that I learn a lot from guests I'm hosting there. So I get a lot of pleasure, and thank you once again for joining. And I hope we'll have at least one more conversation in future. And I hope I will sometime come to the meetups that you're organizing, if there will be remote, or maybe sometime I'll go to Ireland.
Arman, thank you very much for having me. It's absolutely an honor, and I mean it. Thank you very much for thinking about me. And yes, I also hope that our path will cross. And yes, definitely you're welcome in Ireland.
Yeah, it's one of my dream countries. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This was the channel AgileSeeker, and today we're hosting Joanna Koprowicz. And for now, we're ending this. Thank you very much.